Welcome back to the Ultimate Homeschool Community Podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Hernandez. Today we have one of the authors from our new book coming out, Education Unleashed. I am so happy to introduce Mary, and she is from Think Academy, and that's Think 360 Academy. She's the founder and one of our very, very special authors. So welcome, Mary. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me, Tiffany.
Absolutely. And I would love for you to share a little bit about where you came from, how you really found this movement, because as a parent with children who maybe don't quite fit into the traditional realm of education, sometimes it's hard for us to navigate, like, where do we go? What do we do? And I think your story would
Mhm.
resonate with so many.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the fact that I've been in education my whole career, right? So I've been a teacher, I've been a principal, I've been a district leader, and then I've been in kind of the nonprofit space for the past 15 years. And so like I felt like I knew the education system really well, and I felt like I had this privilege because I was able to kind of like navigate and ask the questions that maybe somebody that wasn't so connected to education couldn't ask. But when it came to my own children, and particularly for my son who is diagnosed with autism, like special education is not my field, is not my area of expertise. And just kind of like recognizing the constraints in which a traditional district school has and what they can actually be able to provide, right? And so recognize the fact that like no matter how many kind of outside supports they were trying to provide him, if the classroom experience kept being the same over and over again, he was gonna continue to feel the same way about school, frustrated, feeling like it's not a place for him, not wanting to go or engage at all. And then the teachers and the administrators they're working with were trying to see like this is just it's not working, right? And so I feel like there was this storm, right, that was happening in regards to like being able to give him what he needed and recognizing the fact that even though the school was trying as best as they could, they really didn't have the bandwidth or the ability at this present moment to provide a space and place for him and other students that were having similar experiences.
Right. And you've been on both sides here because you had all the experience being in the district level, being at the principal level, being like the head founder, the leaders of all these areas. But then you've also been on the parent side. Can you share maybe some things that were going on in your head? Because ultimately you're like, I want the best for my child. I also know how the school system works. How did you manage those two areas, because they were almost conflicting essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was have to be a personal choice is like who am I first, right? And I think the first thing is that I am a parent first. That is my primary job. It's my favorite job, even though it's probably in my hardest job that I have, right?
Right.
So how do I then use kind of my educational background experience to better advocate and be a better parent, right? And so I think that is kind of how I was able to bring things together is the fact that like I was going and I try to do and use all the different mechanisms possible to be able to create a different experience, right? So you talk first to the teacher, then you talk to the special education department, then you find a conversation with the administrators and try to ask them about it. I went to the district and talked to the district about kind of like what is it that you're providing? What can you provide? Is there opportunity for something new? So I think I was able to, using my background, knew that as a parent, I did actually have a lot of opportunity, and people had to meet with me, right? Like as a parent of a district, they have to talk to you and they have to meet with you. So I use that a lot to be able to kind of then better understand the landscape of what's happening and know what type of questions to ask folks. And I think for better or worse, people knew me and knew that if Mary's coming, then I need to be able to, if she's emailing me or then I need to respond. And so I think what also that experience and understanding led me to believe is just like the school system is really doing as much as it can, but there's a place or stop where if there's a smaller amount of students that need something different, it's just hard for, even if you're considered a small district, it's just hard for you to create something for a particular amount of students. And yes, special education numbers don't look good in my district, don't look good in our state, in my state of Texas. But a lot of times the bureaucracy within our school systems is slows down and or stops the opportunity to create something new for students that are clearly not being served.
Right. And since you had that prior knowledge of even how to talk to them, I feel like that's where a lot of times parents don't even know that they have the ability to share with these. They don't know the route to take. They don't know the questions that they need to ask. And I know you shared some
Hmm.
of those elements in the book, which we'll get to in a little bit. But being on the spectrum of alternative learning and really needing some more help and specialized learning for the smaller learning groups that might have disabilities or whatever, it can be really challenging as a parent to manage working and being with the child and then figuring out what to do, like immense amount of pressure and stress. And that having your own knowledge base of being in the school district, like I feel like you had slightly an upper hand because you kind of knew people and because they had that knowledge of who you were. But it's like, okay, there's a huge disquality here that's happening. There's discrepancies all over the place. Like your situation might be even a better situation than somebody else who has no clue. But that's where this micro school movement comes into place and why it is changing the landscape of education altogether, not just for students that are on the spectrum, but for all students who might have some kind of special educational needs. With the book and with the story that you share, like it's really for parents and it goes through what you did for your son and how you really came up with the decision to leave the school system. Can you share a little bit about how you dealt with that? Because that not only is that like, okay, I now am the sole, I have to figure this out because they're not figuring it out with me, right? They're not working with me on this. So now I have to do this. Like, can you share with our parents about that? Because I feel sometimes we don't talk about the stress, the pressure that goes with that, and like, how do we handle that as a parent?
Yeah. I appreciate you lifting it up because I think it was a point where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't have this daily struggle of trying to get my child out the door. Like it's like every single day, it's like I don't want to go, I don't want to go, and it's like, and again, I think it probably hurt me even more as somebody who number one loved school when I was growing up, and I loved school so much that I became a teacher, right, and I've been in education, right, so to then to like birth a child that's just like so the antithesis of like everything that I've of who I am, what it just was came to a breaking point where it's like I have to do something different, right? And I think it is scary, right, to know this like
Hmm.
even and I we explored like we really looked to see could we go to what other options are there in our community. We're in a northern suburb of Austin, which unfortunately doesn't have a lot of options in regards to students to school experiences that are serving students who are neurodiverse. So it was either go to a private school and then go to a private school that's about 45 minutes away, right? And we saw that the charter schools around us were not surveying our population either. And so it was a matter of just like you go to the space where it's like, if not me, who, right? And so like I think
Yes,
that's kind of
yes,
right, like that's kind of where you get to point. And I think it also helped to know and to hear from my son's the families that he connects with and other families saying, yeah, like we're my child is also not getting what they need and we need to be doing something, we need to be offering something different. So I think the recognition that it's not just about my one child, right, but recognizing that there are other kids out there. And so I think that probably the scariest part is obviously trying something new and then knowing that like your biggest the person that you kind of hold the most dear in your kid, you're putting them into a space that you don't know if it's going to work, right? And so it's kind of like you let there's kind of the safety of being in a a school environment that has some type of history, even if the
right,
history isn't great. You kind of know what you're going to get, right? Versus going to some place that you're not going to get. But I feel like in the other hand, as one of my most important people, that I can't not give him and try to do something different. So
right.
I think that's probably the
And
scariest part for parents, I think, is that leap.
Yeah, the leap and not knowing like, okay, this is a brand new school. They only have, it's a very small school. Like, what if they're not there next year? What if they don't survive because of pandemics or, I don't know, natural disasters, right? And that is something that's really scary for parents. We want consistency, we want longevity, we want legacy, like, we want to be proud of where our students are, but we are also like, okay, do I keep staying with the school system that doesn't serve my child? Or do I try something new? So there's also a life
Hmm.
change that has to happen here because now you're out of the school system. Now you're into a whole new world of alternative education. And when we came to homeschool, because that's how I got into this, there was such a life changing shift that I was not prepared for. I was not prepared for my children to come out of the classroom and then to home. I wasn't prepared for their emotional dysregulation and having to balance things back out. How did you guys experience much of that? Like, okay, there's this big shift that we had to adjust for.
I mean, I think so. I mean, I think for better or for worse, my son
Yeah.
didn't go to school every day, right? And so we already had a pressure test system in regards to like he knew that if he didn't go to school, we were gonna there was a schedule that we had to follow, right? And so he like knew the
Mm,
flow of like how we did things at home if he wasn't
mm,
going to be at school. And so we kind of set that expectation probably through the last year because the battle of him going to school, there are just some days that I was just like, we're just going to stay home and he kind of so that routine, and thankfully for us, was established a little bit earlier.
yeah,
And I think the kind of the exploration of kind of like figuring out what is it that he likes and how do we do things, like we were able to kind of do that throughout to be able to create something that was really tailored to him, and that he felt like it was based on what he was interested in.
right,
And again, I think that's the benefit of being a teacher before, right? Is but also as a parent, your kid's the best, right? It's like so what they're interested in, what kind of makes them. And so like how ensuring that how you're leaning into those your own knowledge of your child to create a learning experience for them where that you can do that is going to be much different than if they're in a classroom of 20, 25
right.
other kids.
Right. You mentioned something too, that transition was much easier because you had already started to really get him prepared to not be in the classroom. And I think for parents that are like, okay, I've not jumped ship and it is going to be more of a leap of faith of how they're going to respond. But that really it's really dependent on the child. And when you do focus on their interests, when you do focus on the positives and the things that they'd like, it's a much better shift than if you put them into something else that's still not working. And that's where we really can get
Hmm.
into your own academy that you formed and how you formed it, why you formed it the way you did, and how it's now really being beneficial for more than just your son.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I think for Think 360, what we really try to do is like how to create a space for students that we know that the traditional classroom's not going to work, right? So I think we started there. I definitely started with my son in regards to like what's needed in order for him to be able to feel like this is a space for him, right? So even think going down the space, like how is the actual environment actually set up, right? Ensuring that it does not look like your traditional classroom space. And then also recognizing like what are kind of the different curriculum options and choices that are really integral. And I think for me, it was really important to ensure that he as well as the other students received the fundamentals of learning, right? So you want to make sure they have that, but also giving space in place for choice and for project-based learning. So really kind of meshing to sometimes opposing concepts around approaches to learning and bringing them together, I think was really important because wanting them to all the students to be able to walk away with having a strong fundamental skill set, but also feeling like their learning was around who they were. And then also I think the biggest piece, and I think for our students who are neurodiverse, a lot of times it's those social skills as well, right? And I think it's really hard if you're for them to develop social skills in a larger classroom,
Mm,
right? So and again, in traditional school, you have either a huge classroom or you have being pulled away into like a super small or one-to-one, and there's no like middle space, right? And I think again, the micro school gives you that space to have a smaller space environment, but not too small, right? So you can kind of, and you can choose like, okay, this is my time to be by myself, and I just want to be myself in this corner or in this in the space, and then this is a time for me to be around a select group of peers, and that we're going to kind of build and be able to talk to each other. And so I think for me, I think probably the overall word was flexibility, right?
Of course.
Um, um, yeah, and kind of making sure that that was in every aspect of the school experience.
Right. And so for parents that are maybe coming in and like, okay, what do I do with my child? He is on the spectrum or on the neurodivergent side. What kind of things do I need to look for in a micro school setting that would be the best benefit? And like you're saying, small group learning, flexibility, what does a classroom look like? In terms of like a checklist or even just a few pinpointers, what would you say would be something that, especially with your son, but that you've seen with other students, seems to be like these are the headlines that we need to have for it to function best for learners?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think again, I would say flexibility. So, like, do they have space for them to be able to come 2, 3, or 5 days a week, right? So again, recognizing that a lot of times students, it's challenging for them to be in a school environment 5 days a week all day. And number two, I think the space, right, and kind of what type of flexibilities are there, and kind of set room setup in order to ensure that different type of learners and how they can able to interact with each other. I would also say the flexibility within the curriculum, as well as flexibility in ensuring that social emotional skills as well, I think is really social skills as well, I think is really a key aspect of it. And then I think
Yeah.
it's also adjacent partnerships and opportunities. So I think a lot of students who are neurodivergent may receive therapy services, or may receive occupational therapy, or may, and so I think the creating a space where those type of services can be provided either are within the school environment, so having space where a counselor or therapist can come in and provide those services, I think is also really key as well. And so I think the understanding and knowing what type of relationship that Microschool has with organizations and therapies, and then also potentially with the district as well, noting that we can't, as a Microschool, we can't provide every single
Right.
additional service, right? And so helping and knowing that that's the Microschool founders and staff members are really going to be partners with you as a parent to help you navigate things, I think is also really critical.
That's really good insight, especially being a parent yourself and a founder. And in the book, you share a lot about giving a voice to your son, giving a voice to those who might be like the underdogs or those that are looked over in the school system. And for parents that are going through that, they're in the midst of that struggle, getting their child seen and heard. What would you say would be like a bit of advice, like the most, like the number one word of wisdom that you have for them along this journey? Because it's not easy. It's not all valleys, it's not all mountains. It's up and down.
It's definitely up and down. I think that's probably what the biggest thing would be, is just like perseverance, right? And knowing that you have your mission and your goal, right, is ensuring that your kid is getting the best education possible. And there's no higher goal than that, right? And so like how do you, even if you're being told no, or things are not working out in the first choice that you make, that you continue to find the best environment for them, and ensuring that also not letting anyone off the hook, to be
Yeah.
honest, right? To like ensure that you are being that persistent person for your child to get what they need.
Right. Yeah. And the whole movement is around getting the child what they need because we see the discrepancies, we see all the gaps and trying to figure out how to bridge those gaps. And that's really where this movement came out of. I mean, it is the hybrid system, it is the alternative learning. It's not just homeschooling, it's not just enrichment, it's incorporating the therapies, it's getting the child the flexibility that they need and not putting them in that rigid box. More students, unfortunately, we're seeing much more students coming out with the neurodiversities And as parents, we have to think ahead. Okay, well, how is this going to affect them long term? How can we lessen the blow?
Mhm.
How can we make sure that we lift them up as much as possible? And all parents want is for their children to be successful and happy. Like, nobody wants their kid to be suffering in a classroom that they don't feel seen or heard. Like, who would want that for their kid? It's been such a pleasure talking
Right.
with you. And if people have, like, if these parents are really wanting to either A, like, talk to you about the school itself, or even just ask questions about, I think this might be a journey that I want to take. Maybe they have some questions about how to go about it themselves. Where would be the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we are Think 360 Academy is on, we have our website, which is just that, think360academy.org. We also are on social media. We have a Facebook page as well as on Instagram. And both of those places, I not only try to just kind of talk about the school, but also try to provide like tips and strategies for parents as well. So that you feel like it's a resource for you, for parents, particularly for students that their students are neurodiverse. So you can definitely subscribe to the blog through our website, or else you can just kind of follow us on social media, and you get the same information.
That's great. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing. I'm so glad that you were able to join us in this book, and we will have links to everything in the show notes. And for the book, you'll have to go out definitely and read Mary's chapter. It's one of inspiration. It's been such a pleasure, Mary. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Happy homeschooling, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me on the Ultimate Homeschool Community Podcast. Before you go, though, don't miss out. Check those show notes down below so you can get those exclusive freebies and helpful resources and some practical tips that we've been sharing to support your homeschool journey. If you found value in today's episode, which I'm sure you have, please, please, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, share it with another parent who needs it. You know, the more reviews and comments that we get, the more parents we can reach with the support they need. And so your next step towards confident homeschooling is literally just a click away. Just check below. So just check out those notes, and we'll see you next time.